The Korthak fleet spread across space like a disease, their black ships blotting out entire star fields as they advanced toward Zephyria. From the bridge of the Defiant, Princess Lyra watched the enemy armada through the ship's enhanced sensors, her scaled hands trembling as she counted hundreds of vessels, each one capable of destroying cities. "Cloaking device is holding steady," Lieutenant Commander Park reported from his station. "We're invisible to their sensors, but we need to move fast. The closer we get to that flagship, the harder it will be to maintain the illusion." Captain Chen stood behind the tactical display, studying the enemy formation with the intensity of a predator stalking its prey. "Rodriguez, what's the status on our allied fleets?" 17 task forces are holding position at the rally points, sir. The moment we signal success, they'll jump in and engage. If we fail..." She left the sentence unfinished. "We won't fail," Chen said with quiet confidence. "Dr. Vasquez, is the princess ready?" Lyra had spent the morning in the ship's medical bay, undergoing procedures that would help her survive the psychic assault she was about to attempt. Neural dampeners had been implanted behind her eyes to prevent her mind from being completely overwhelmed, and her nervous system had been flooded with stimulants that would keep her conscious even under extreme telepathic stress. "As ready as we can make her," the doctor replied. "But Captain, what she's attempting has never been tried before. The psychic feedback could kill her." "I understand the risks," Lyra said, moving to the central command console. "My people are worth that risk." Through the view screen, the Korthak flagship came into view. The Soul Render was a nightmare made manifest in metal and dark energy, stretching for kilometers and bristling with weapons that could crack moons. Organic-looking conduits pulsed along its hull, and at its heart was a massive crystal structure that glowed with sickly purple light. "That's the psychic core," Chen explained. "The enslaved telepaths are held in chambers throughout that central section. If you can reach even one of them..." "I'll reach them," Lyra said, settling into the specially modified chair that would amplify her telepathic abilities. "Just get me close enough." The Defiant crept through the outer perimeter of the Korthak fleet, its cloaking device bending light and sensor waves around the small human vessel. They passed between massive battle cruisers and destroyer squadrons, any one of which could have vaporized them instantly if their presence was discovered. "Contact in 30 seconds, Park announced. Lyra closed her eyes and extended her consciousness outward, feeling for the minds trapped within the enemy flagship. At first, there was only darkness and the overwhelming malevolence of the Korthak themselves. Their thoughts were alien and cruel, focused entirely on conquest and domination. Then she felt them. Dozens of telepaths from different species, their minds caged and tortured, forced to power the psychic defenses of their captors. The pain radiating from them was almost unbearable. "I can sense them," she whispered. "They're in agony." "Can you make contact?" Chen asked. Lyra pushed deeper, ignoring the mental barriers that tried to keep her out. Her consciousness touched that of a young Centaurian male whose mind had been broken by years of forced servitude, then an elderly Vegan female whose telepathic abilities had been twisted into tools of war. One by one, she made contact with the enslaved psychics. Who are you?" The thought came from multiple minds at once, weak and desperate. "I am Princess Leirana of Zephyria. I'm here to free you." "Impossible. The barriers are too strong, the pain too great." "Listen to me." Lyra projected with all the strength she could muster. "There are fleets of free worlds waiting to strike. If you can lower the defenses, even for a moment, we can end this." She felt their fear, their hopelessness, their certainty that escape was impossible, but underneath it all, she sensed something else. A tiny spark of rebellion that the Korthak had never been able to completely extinguish. 20 seconds to insertion point, Rodriguez called out. The Defiant was now deep within the enemy formation, surrounded by ships that could destroy entire star systems. The flagship loomed before them like a metallic mountain, its psychic emanations making the human crew feel nauseous and disoriented. "Please," Lyra begged the enslaved telepaths. "Think of your homeworlds. Think of the people who are still free because of your sacrifice. Help me save them." The response came not in words, but in a wave of determination that surprised her. One by one, the enslaved minds began to focus their remaining strength not on maintaining the barriers, but on tearing them down. The psychic defenses around the soul render flickered and wavered. "Now!" Chen shouted. Lieutenant Commander Park launched a cluster of micro-drones from the Defiant's cargo bay. Each one was no larger than a human fist, designed to slip through the brief gap in the flagship's defenses and penetrate its computer core. The Korthak response was immediate and overwhelming. Alarms began screaming across their fleet as they realized they were under attack. The Soul Render's weapon systems came online, searching for targets. "They've detected us," Rodriguez reported. "Cloaking device is failing." The Defiant shook as Korthak energy weapons bracketed their position. On the view screen, Lyra could see dozens of enemy ships turning to face them, their gun ports glowing with deadly intent. But it was too late. The micro-drones had reached their target, and the virus they carried was already spreading through the Korthak command network. One by one, enemy ships began dropping out of formation as their control systems failed. "Thank you," came the collective whisper from the enslaved telepaths. "We can rest now." Lyra felt their minds going quiet, not from death, but from peaceful sleep as the psychic barriers collapsed entirely. The effort had cost them everything, but they had finally struck back at their oppressors. "Allied fleets are jumping in," Park announced with excitement. 17 task forces right on schedule." Space around the Korthak armada erupted in flashes of light as Allied ships emerged from hyperspace. Zephyrian crystal ships gleamed like jewels as they engaged Korthak battlecruisers. Human vessels darted between larger opponents like deadly insects, their weapon systems specifically designed to exploit Korthak weaknesses. Centaurian dreadnoughts traded volleys with enemy capital ships, while vegan stealth fighters slipped through defensive screens to strike at vital targets. "The flagship is trying to restore command and control," Rodriguez reported, "but the virus is adapting faster than their countermeasures." Captain Chen smiled grimly as he watched the battle unfold. "Signal all Allied forces. Target their command ships first. Without coordination, they're just individual targets." The tide of battle turned quickly. Korthak ships, designed to function as part of a unified fleet, found themselves isolated and vulnerable. Many began to retreat, their captains unwilling to fight without the support of the central command structure. Others tried to surrender, only to discover that their own computer systems were no longer responding to their commands. Lyra opened her eyes and found Dr. Vasquez scanning her with a medical tricorder. "How do you feel, Princess?" "Tired," she admitted, "but alive. Did it work?" "See for yourself," Chen said, helping her to the main view screen. The Korthak armada was in full retreat, their ships scattering in all directions as Allied forces pursued them. The Soul Render itself was adrift, its engines dead and its weapon systems offline. Rescue shuttles were already approaching the flagship, preparing to evacuate the surviving enslaved telepaths. "Your Highness," Commander Rodriguez said with a smile, "you've just witnessed the first major defeat of the Korthak Imperium in over 2 centuries. Communications flooded in from across the Allied fleet. Victory reports mixed with requests for medical assistance and coordination of the pursuit of fleeing enemy vessels. But the message that meant the most came from Zephyria itself. Queen Vexaria's face appeared on the main screen, tears of relief streaming down her scaled cheeks. "My daughter, my brave, beautiful daughter, you have saved not just our world, but countless others." I couldn't have done it without the humans, Mother. Captain Chen and his crew risked everything to make this possible. The Queen turned her attention to Chen, studying him with new respect. Captain, I owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You took my most precious treasure into the heart of enemy territory and brought her home safely. Your Highness was the key to this entire operation, Your Majesty. We just provided transportation. As the Defiant began its journey back to Zephyria, Lyra found herself thinking about the enslaved telepaths who had sacrificed everything to make this victory possible. Their freedom had come at a terrible cost, but their courage had inspired an entire galaxy to stand up against tyranny. Captain, she said quietly, what happens now? Now we rebuild, Chen replied. We help the freed worlds recover. We hunt down the remaining Korthak strongholds, and we make sure that no one ever has to choose between surrender and annihilation again. Princess Lyrana looked out at the stars, knowing that she would spend the rest of her life working to keep this promise. The galaxy had learned something important. When faced with impossible odds, sometimes the answer wasn't to fight harder, but to fight together. And sometimes, a queen's greatest act of courage was knowing when to trust in the better angels of another species' nature.